Hello and welcome to lesson 3 of week 11. In this lesson we are going to look at CSS gradients and shadows. My name is Mildred. In CSS we have 6 functions that we can use to define gradients, and we use gradients to have a smooth transition between 2 or more colors on a page. We have this web page that we designed in last week's lesson using the grid view layout, and I want to style this page even further using gradients. The main content area of this page is the article section here, and I'll go back to my page and I'll see what the article looks like. I want to create a style for the article, so I'll do this here. What I want to do with this article is to specify a background color that will transition from one color to another. But before I put the main design, let us see how the linear gradient functions work. We first specify a background color for browsers that do not support linear gradients, and let's say we want the background color to be this. Then we specify the background image, and then for the background image we use linear gradient function, and within the linear gradient function we specify the direction we want it to go, and then we specify the colors, so color 1, color 2, up to the last color that you want. The default direction for the linear gradient is to go from top to bottom. I will have the color of blue, I want to have yellow, and I want to have red. When I save this and I go to my web page and I refresh, I'm going to have the color transition from top to bottom as blue, yellow, and red. So this gives me my basic linear gradient, transitioning the colors from the 3 colors that I have specified. If I want to change the direction now, I'm going to specify a direction. Let's say I want it to go from bottom to top, so I'll specify to top like this, and then so I'll save this and then I'll refresh my page. It should reverse the colors from bottom to top. We can change the direction to go from left to right using to right. Refresh my page, then it goes from left to right, or I want it to go from right to left, and I'll put to left like this. So this is the basic way that we can use linear gradient with the full colors that we have specified. There's another way we can do if we want it to go diagonally like this. Let's say we want it to go, we want to specify the vertical and the horizontal to make a diagonal. So let's say I want it to go to top right. Let's say to top right. So this is how we make it go diagonally. Save, refresh, and I have it go that way. Or I can go to bottom right. So when you try them out, you see how to specify these values and how they will present on the page. We can also use degrees for the direction. For instance, let's say I want to have it go, let's say 90 degree. I'll specify 90 degree like this, and I want it blue, yellow, red. Save, refresh, and I have it like this. Or I say minus 90 degree to go reverse. So you can specify the values of the direction in degrees like that. If we want to use the same color and maybe let's say change the transparency, then we can now start using the RGB values. So I want it to go from, let's say, to bottom right, and I want it to be RGBA. I want the shade of blue, so 00255. I want it to go from fully transparent to fully opaque. Save this, refresh my page, and I should have the blue transition. If I want to control this and I want it to just stop at 0.7, save this, refresh my page, and I have the transition. So you get the idea of how we use the linear gradient. We might want to do something like repeat the color several times. We have something we call the repeating linear gradient, which is the second linear gradient function, written like this. And what this does is to repeat them a specified number of times. Let's say I wanted to have something like blue. I want it to repeat yellow 10%. So I want it to repeat 10 times. So I'll say yellow, or let's say 20. So it repeats 5 times. Yellow 20% and red 20%. Save this, refresh my page, and I don't have it applied. So we have background image, repeating linear gradient. We have blue. I have to put a comma here. Save this, refresh, and we have it applied. So it repeated 5 times because 20 times 5 gives you 100%. So this is how you repeat the same gradient several times on the page based on the percentage that you specify. So this is all about linear gradients. The next function we are going to look at is the radial gradient function. And we use radial gradients to specify the transition between colors, but this is defined at the center. And how do we do this? We use the background image property like this, and we specify radial gradient. Within the function, we are going to specify the shape, the size, and then we'll start specifying the colors. The default shape we have is an ellipse shape. We can change the shape from ellipse to circle, but let's look at the basic way we can do this. So we want to have the blue, the yellow, and the red. When I save this and I refresh, I have this in ellipse shape, defined by the center, the blue, then the yellow, and then the red around. I can change this and specify the percentage like this. So when I say blue, let's put blue at 20%, then we'll put yellow at 70%, and then we'll put red at 10%. So let's see if this works. Save this, refresh my page, and I have it based on the percentage specified. So we can change the shape by specifying circle. I want it to be a circle, so I'll specify circle, save, refresh. So it's going to change from the ellipse to a circle like this. You want to specify the size, save this, refresh, and we have it like this. We can change this from closest corner to farthest side. Save this, refresh, and then we can also have the closest side. So try out the values, see when it applies, and research more, then try them out to see how you can use this to design web page based on the kind of pages you are designing. We have the last type of gradient, which is the conic gradient, and with this the transitions are rotated around the center point. And I'm going to illustrate this here. It's written conic gradient like this, and the values it takes is, you can take from angle, the angle you want to start from, and the position you want to start from at the angle, and then the colors, color 1, color 2. So this is the syntax. Let's say we want to have a basic one in a clockwise direction. Let me use the same blue, yellow, and red. Save this, refresh, and I have it defined around the center point. So it starts blue, transitions to yellow, and then to red. If I want to have, let's say we want to change this to be a pie chart, for instance. We want to define a pie chart. we use the border radius property to make it a circle like this. So I'll put border radius and we'll set it to 50%. When I save this and I refresh, we're going to have it as a circle. We are going to change the degrees of each of the colors so that we can have a proper pie chart. And let's say we want blue. We want blue to start from 0 degree. So let's say blue 0 degree, and then we want the blue to end at 90 degree. We want yellow to start at 90 degree, and we want yellow again to end at 180 degree. We want red to start at 180 degree, and we want red to end at 270 degree. Save this, refresh, and we'll have a proper pie chart on the page. We can also do it so that we can have the angle and the start position. So let's say I want it to start at, so I'll say at 20%. So I want it to start from 20% left, and then I want it to be 50% from the top to the bottom, and I want the colors to be blue, yellow, and red. Let's save this, refresh our page, and we'll have it starting 20% from the left and 50% from the top. So this is how we use the conic gradient. We also have the repeating conic gradient written like this, and then we can say we want it to repeat blue at 10%, we want it to have yellow at 20%, and we want it to have red at 30%. Save this, refresh our page, and we'll have it repeated just as we have specified. So you have an idea of how to use colors in gradients in CSS. So when you have your web page idea, you want to decide what you want to do, you want to use linear gradient for the background color of the page, you are welcome to do so. I am going to change my article background color to use a linear gradient. So research more about these functions and try them out on your web page to see how you can work around with colors and create beautiful designs. Let's look at CSS shadows after the break. Let us look at the text shadow properties. We discussed this in part 1, but we're going to revisit it on the web page. So let's try to apply a shadow to maybe the heading. We'll just do this for illustration. So we have the header with the background color and the color. I'm going to put a text shadow property here, and we learned previously that for the text shadow we specify the horizontal shadow, the vertical shadow, the blur, the color in that order, or we can just use maybe just the horizontal shadow and the vertical shadow and the color. Let's say we want it red. I'll save this, refresh my page, and we'll have the shadow around the text like this. So take note that when you specify these values, it's going to be a space separated list like this. We can put a blur of 5 pixels here, save, refresh. If we want to have multiple shadows, we can do that as a comma separated list. Let's say we have this, and then we have another shadow, 2px, 3px. Let's put a blur of 5px and the color of green. Save this, refresh our page, and then we see how it looks. So you can actually put several shadows, but you put them as a comma separated list like this. So let's put a blur of 3 pixels so that we can see the colors thicker or better. So we have it this way. I'm going to change this to be black, save, refresh, so you can see the effect of the shadows. So you can have multiple shadows. So we have something else called box shadow. We apply it to a container. Let's try to apply box shadow to the navigation and see how it looks. So I'm going to create a style for the nav, and what I'll do is to give the nav a background color. So let's say we have a background color for the nav, and I'll make the background color, let's use this color, save, refresh to see if it applies. And so we have that color. It's very light, so we can't see it. So let's use a color that we can see clearly, refresh, and then we have this light shade of gray. We want to apply a shadow around this navigation container, and we specify that using the box shadow property written like this. For box shadow, we specify the horizontal shadow, the vertical shadow, the blur. Then we have something called the spread, and the spread is just how large or how small we want the shadow to be. We also have the color, and then we have the inset. We're going to see how the inset works, because the default is outset where we see the box around, but inset is when we want to make the box inside. So let's try and put a box shadow with the basic. So we'll specify the horizontal shadow, the vertical shadow, and let's use a color, let's say blue. Save this, refresh, and we have a shadow here. And say we want to have something like RGBA 00255 0.7, refresh, and so we have that. We can specify the blur for this shadow to be 2 pixels. We want to have a spread, let's say we want it very wide, 5 pixels, and I'll save this, I'll refresh, and you see how this works. So we have the spread larger. We can also change it to inset instead of outset by specifying inset like this. Save, refresh, and we'll see it is inside rather than outside. So this is how we use box shadow. We can also have things like multiple box shadow like we have with the text shadow, but this time we'll do it with a comma separated list, and we add something like, let's say 2px, 3px, 2px, 5px, and then we have, let's use red. Save this, refresh, and then we have multiple shadows. We have the blue and then the red. So I'm going to remove the inset here, and let's take off the spread and the blur. Save this, refresh, so you get the idea. You can have multiple shadows, and I'm going to put a spread here of 5 pixels. Save, refresh. So when you continue to play around with this, you will know what values you want to adjust to get the effects that you want. So once you are designing, you have to keep trying out values to see what value gives you the look and the feel of the web page that you want to create. So this is where we end this lesson. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.